order, and we can go ahead and start with a roll call.
All right. Commissioner Alpine. Commissioner Gustafson.
Here.
Commissioner Landon.
Here.
Commissioner Mendonça.
Here.
Commissioner Rohan.
Here.
Commissioner Stevens. He's
Greg.
here. Commissioner
I'm here.
Stevens. Okay.
Okay.
Alternate Commissioner Holmes. Alternate Commissioner Carl. Alternate Commissioner Knisley.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Starsky. And Chair Burris.
Here. All right. Well, if everyone will please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Do we have any changes to the agenda order today?
No changes from staff.
Wonderful. Well, then we can move straight to public comment. Do we have any public comment today? Seeing none, we can go to consent. All right, all items on consent are considered routine and non-controversial in nature. They'll be moved on in one blanket motion. Anybody may pull an item from consent for discussion. Would anybody like to pull an item from consent? All right. I'm going to go ahead and back up for a second. Did you have public comment today, sir? Thank you. Okay. Well, with that being said, I will entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
So moved. Second.
All right, can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Gustafson.
Yes.
Commissioner Landon.
Yes.
Commissioner Mendonça.
Yes.
Commissioner Rohan.
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens.
Yes.
And Chair Burris.
Yes. Okay, consent passes, and we'll move to our business items, starting with item A, the financial statement audit for fiscal year 21-22.
Jeremy, Davis Farr will be presenting. Do you mind moving him to a presenter?
He is a presenter.
Oh, okay. It was muted. Sorry. Hello, everyone. Hello, commissioners. So just really quickly, I wanted to just point out one of the recommendation in the audit to you, which is that LAFCO established procedures or policies and procedures to identify adjustments in the reporting period. We have existing policies. It's just that we're now implementing stricter protocols with the changeover in staffing. And then with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan with Davis Farr. And just let me know when you want me to advance the slides, Jonathan.
Sure. Would it be easier if I shared my screen, or do you want to just, would you prefer to control it? Oh, okay. I can let you control it then. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I just want to thank Michelle for her hard work for getting you through your first audit. This is a great opportunity for me to share a little bit about what we spent time on as auditors and answer any questions that the commission may have. Let me go ahead and bring up my PowerPoint so I can follow along as well. So you can go ahead and start with the next slide, Michelle. Thank you so much. So my name is Jonathan Foster. I was the partner overseeing the audit, and we did have an audit staff in person out there in late November, early December, performing the audit, walking through internal controls in person at your agency. So to get started a little bit about the letters that we issue. The first is the opinion on the financial statements. So we issued an unmodified opinion. An unmodified opinion is the highest level you can receive, which what that means is as auditors, we did not have to make any modifications to the opinion. Also included in the opinion this year is the disclosure of a new accounting standard. So you'll see a paragraph this year that is labeled emphasis of matter. And within that paragraph, it describes the new accounting standard, GASB 87 leases, which did require some changes to your financial statements. Well, I wouldn't call it changes since it's the first audited financial statements, but it is new going forward for all government agencies. Second letter we issued was a report on internal control over financial reporting, and that is where we had our one recommendation that Michelle just described. And lastly, addressed to the commission is a letter titled The Summary of Audit Results, where we just communicated, the timing of the audit, and the results of the audit. So on the next slide, some areas of our audit focus were internal controls. So as I previously said, we're out there in person walking through the different processes that the commission has. Secondly, cash and investments. One of the things we do is externally confirm with the county your cash investments. So as auditors, we simply do not go out and rely on bank statements given to us. We confirm directly with the county the amount they are holding on your behalf, the amount in cash investments reported in your financial statements. GASB 87 leases. That was new for fiscal year 21-22. So there are some additional footnotes that needed to be included this year in notes 3 and 7. Now what that standard did is require you to recognize a right to use asset, in that case your leased office space, and a liability for the use of that office space. Lastly, we audited your pension and OPEB obligations. So the information we use there is information from the county and rely on the reporting of external actuaries. Make sure the actuarial reports correctly communicate and display the pension liabilities and OPEB asset in your case. So you have an asset for an OPEB, which I will show you a little bit later in the face of the financials. So I want to spend a little bit of time on what you see on the face of the financial statements. Starting out here is your statement of net position. This is the very first statement included in your financial statements. Now what this statement displays is not only your current assets and liabilities, it also includes your long-term assets and liabilities. Items such as capital assets and your net OPEB assets and related deferrals from pension and OPEBs. And on the next page, you'll see long-term liabilities as well. So now what this results in is a net deficit position. So if you see at the very bottom of this, your net position is actually a deficit position. And this isn't necessarily a cause for alarm. This is because you add in your long-term liabilities, your compensated absences, your lease liability, and your net pension liability, and your deferrals relating to the pension and OPEB. So when you add these long-term items to your financial statements, it creates a net deficit position. However, on the very next slide, you'll see what is called a governmental fund, and this is your general operating fund. So your general operating fund actually has a positive fund balance of $310,000. So these differences are what you'll see in the audited financial statements, that your general operating fund is really a snapshot of your year-end balances that are available and current for spending by the commission. And the last statement I wanted to speak a little bit about, this is your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance of the general fund. Now, a requirement this year due to GASB 87 is to display these lease payments as a component of debt service. So you'll see principal and interest payments here. So the commission didn't actually take on any new debt. What GASB 87 did is required you to recognize this lease liability. Now, these payments were always reflected in the past in your accounting ledger, but the requirement this year going forward is to display them as a principal and calculate an interest component to this. So if you ever see these year over year, this principal and interest expense, it is not because the commission took on some debt, but is because it recognized a lease liability and is required to be recorded in this manner. And for the year overall, the commission did operate at a slight deficit of $48,000. So starting off with audited beginning fund balance at the beginning of the year, $358,000. There was a drop down to $310,000. So for the year, you operated at a slight deficit. Now, one of the items I've been communicating to boards across the state is a net pension liability. What government agencies saw throughout the state in the fiscal year 21-22 was a large drop in everyone's pension liability. In your case, it decreased from approximately $664,000 down to $482,000. Now, I want to caution you that the expectation is that this is going to jump back up in the next fiscal year. Now, this is because CalPERS recognizes their investment gains and losses a year behind your fiscal year. So their measurement period of 2021 is used by CalPERS to calculate the pension liability for your fiscal year 22. So in fiscal year 22, CalPERS recognized a 21.3% gain investment rate of return for fiscal year 21, which caused these large pension decreases across the state of California. Now for fiscal year 2022, the measurement period used to report the pension liability for fiscal year 23, as I said, a year behind, CalPERS recognized a 6.1% loss. So the expectation is that these pension liabilities are going to shoot back up, not at any fault of these government agencies, but simply because the investment rate of return recognized by CalPERS. So at this time, I wanted to open up to any questions that the commissioners may have.
All right, does anybody have any questions, concerns, comments? All right, do we have any public questions, concerns, or comments? Wonderful. Well, with that being said, we can go ahead and bring it back to the board for action. Michelle, did you have any closing comments on the item?
Just the staff recommendation, which is to receive and file and distribute, as well as post our audit on our website.
Okay. All right. It is now open for action from the board.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Gustafson,
Yes.
Commissioner Landon,
Yes.
Commissioner Mendonça,
Yes.
Commissioner Rohan,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Alternate Commissioner Carl,
Yes.
and Chair Burris.
Yes. All right, wonderful. Now we can move to,
Before we move on, can I just ask, for next year, when we do talk a little bit about strategic planning, talking about establishing reserves and what is good practice for LAFCOs versus other entities, I'm not as familiar with what a LAFCO reserve should look like in order that we don't have some of these, that we're building a reserve for those liabilities that are coming.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how other LAFCOs do it. I know what I would do in a special district or a county, but not necessarily with.
It seems to be all over the board. There has been discussions amongst the EOs as far as how much reserves should LAFCOs have. And it fluctuates. Some have percentages, 20, 25%, and then some is, it depends on their operating budget, right? And so that's what I should say. So 20% of their operating budget or 25% of their operating budget, but there's not a set formula. It really depends on
Well, it might be something, that's why I mentioned on strategic planning, to think about a goal that is, that we look at those and think about where this LAFCO should be.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Currently, we do not have a policy.
yeah, okay, thank you. Sorry, Trinity.
I'm going to actually tack on to that too. I was going to say with that, we should probably talk about where we came from and where we're going.
Yes.
And add in the context of what mistakes we're still cleaning up, because I know that that has a very significant impact. And the couple notations we did have here in the audit on this cycle were specifically because of that cleanup. And so I think it would be helpful to all the commissioners when we go to approve the next budget that we keep that in mind as well, and we bring it to the forefront.
Right. So part of the reason why we were operating at the deficit that you saw was because we were paying old claims, old supplier claims, and that should have been paid in prior, 2 other budget cycles ago, for example. And so we were playing catch up.
Yeah.
And Michelle, I totally understand that, but I do think looking forward,
Absolutely.
we want to fix,
Yeah.
things so that, obviously we're addressing that per the auditor's recommendation, but also looking at that. And, while we're talking about cleanup, Michelle showed me the photos of the office over a period of 2 weeks when she moved in. If you haven't all seen these and what cleanup Michelle needed to do,
There's a physical representation.
it's a physical representation of where we were at and where we are today. And Michelle, you don't get enough credit for that, but thank you.
Thank
I also think it's amazing that Amy stayed.
Poor Amy. But no, we definitely need a reserves policy. We do have some in undesignated fund balance, so that should be considered as well. I believe it's like $310,000 that we could, if we needed to, on an emergency basis, come and obviously staff would have to request the commission appropriate those funds, but we do have some existing.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Well, with that, we'll go ahead and move to item B, and this is the appointment of our LAFCO Alternate Public Member. Michelle, do you have a presentation for this item?
I do not. I really wanted to leave it up to the ad hoc committee, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Just very briefly, the ad hoc committee did interview on 2 different days, and we had a really good pool of applicants. There were 10 and very highly qualified, a lot of former city mayors, of former grand jury members or current grand jury members, city planning commissioners, so a very good pool. And so with that, I'll just turn it over to you.
Well, I think that's a pretty great summary, and obviously we did meet several times. We did conduct interviews among the applicants, and ultimately we felt unanimously that Cherry Spriggs was the ideal candidate. She is more than qualified, and we're excited about the LAFCO experience she does bring as an alternate public member for our board. Cherry, did you want to say anything? Did you?
Sure.
Well, come on up to the podium.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Chair and Commissioners, Vice Chair. So yeah, I'm really excited. I think professionally, I've worked with a lot of you. Personally, I know a lot of you. I live in Lincoln. I've lived there since 2009, but I've lived in Placer County since 2001, Roseville and Rockland, and have just been really involved in the community from a business perspective. I was the president of the Lincoln Chamber for 2 years, an economic development committee member, involved with the Placer Business Alliance now. So all that experience really, I think, lends itself well to this role, and I was super excited about it. And I think, the experience that Trinity speaks to, working over my 2 decades long career with LAFCOs across the state, helping in different situations as it relates to more of public affairs and ballot measure campaigns, islands that we're looking to get annexed, things like that. So anyways, I'm just happy to have been recommended and for the opportunity to be interviewed, and I look forward to this role. So thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, with that, do we have any comments from the board regarding this item?
Some of us got to interview Cherry, but if others would like to ask for a question.
Yeah, any questions or?
Yeah.
I know most of us have had the pleasure of working with you before. Well, do we have any public comments regarding this item or any questions from the public for Cherry? None? Okay. None online? Just double checking. Okay. Well, with that, we can go ahead and bring it back for action.
I would like to move approval of appointing Cherry Spriggs as our alternate public member.
I'll second.
I would like to make a strong second. I was on the
He
interview
can take the
committee.
second. He can-
All right. All right. Well, with that, can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Gustafson,
Yes.
Commissioner Landon,
Yes.
Commissioner Mendonça,
Yes.
Commissioner Rohan.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. That's correct. Commissioner Stevens
Yes.
and alternate Commissioner Carl and Chair Burris.
Yes. All right. Welcome, Terry. Thank you very much. You are now official. And with that, we can move to item C, electing the next chair and vice chair. And with this, I don't know if you have a presentation.
I do not, just very quickly, we have a rotation schedule, and it's not set in stone. It's still up to the commission, but with the rotation schedule, the staff recommendation is for the chair's seat to go to Commissioner Gustafson and, Vice Chair Gustafson, and the vice chair for Commissioner Rohan.
All right, with that, do we have any discussion? Seeing none, do we have any public comment? All right, let's bring it back for action. I will move that we appoint Vice Chair Gustafson to the position of chair for this next year, and that we also have Commissioner Rohan as vice chair.
I'll second that.
All right, can I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Gustafson,
Aye.
Commissioner Landon,
Yes.
Commissioner Mendonça,
Yes.
Commissioner Rohan,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Alternate Commissioner Carl,
Yes.
and Chair Burris.
Yes. All right, it's official. I guess the last item we really have here as far as business is the executive officer's report, so it's up to you, Michelle.
Thank you. I just wanted to give just a brief summary of staff's recent activities. Last week, we were in Murphy's, and we had such a big turnout from Placer County, and I really wanted to thank some of our special districts and also our county exec staff for participating. Placer County Water Agency, you'll see there Andy, FECO, the GM, and then also Sean Barkley with Tahoe City PUD. They were our panelists on a session for consolidating water systems. And they provided such great information, and also the state, I can't remember her name, but she's from the State Water Control Board, was there and presenting with them and providing information on how local agencies could tap into these grants. And we're talking millions of dollars that's available not just for disadvantaged communities, but also communities that aren't so disadvantaged. But still have a need. So they were there, and it was fantastic. And then we also had Chief Mark Dewar with South Placer Fire Protection District. He was on a panel for consolidating fire districts and what could go right and what could go wrong. And sadly, we had the what could go wrong. But we wanted to share his experience. That way it could help inform other LAFCOs about, the need to transfer to a one rights, for example, and, assessments that you'll see in my slides later, why it's such a big difference when you talk about consolidations versus reorganizations and what that truly means. So he was there, and he was fantastic. One of the other EOs commented that he was providing therapy for the LAFCOs. So just wanted to bring also another event coming up, which is the conference in Monterey in October. I encourage everyone to attend. The commissioners, it's geared for elected officials. So that's coming up, and we'll find out more about it in the next month or two. Just a couple of projects that we're wrapping up, and then also that we're in the middle of. There were some conditions of approval for the SUD-B NAQ that the commission approved. One of them was the annexation of a small 0.5 acre parcel and portions of Highway 65. I did receive a call from the city community development director, and it turns out they have to amend the general plan for this annexation, so it will take them longer than we had anticipated because it does require a general plan amendment, and which brings me to thank you so much for not amending the boundary at the last at the meeting when the commission approved it, because I know that's the typical LAFCO. We amend the boundary at the meeting to make it more logical, right? And in this case, the commission said, no, we're splitting this up, and they can come back at a later time, because that would have also added time to the proponents, I think the Gill family and the Perry family. And then the other conditions of approval, which was on the MSR, which the city will be conducting a long-range fire department master plan. I haven't received an update, but that's on the back of my mind. I know that's due in October for us to receive that, a progress report. And then Village 5 and 7B, they will be working on the plan for providing services, and also we need to come back for a sphere of influence update, because once again, we bifurcated their sphere to allow the SUD-B NAQ to go forward. So that's it for Lincoln, if you have any questions. Okay.
Nope, no questions here.
And then we do have a lot of studies and projects on the fire districts. We have the North Tahoe Meeks Bay Fire Protection district. There's a couple of updates since our last meeting. We will be receiving a fiscal analysis from Goodwin, which was initiated by Placer County. And again, any of the affected agencies can request that study. And so we had Placer County requesting fiscal analysis. And so we're expecting that by the end of the week. And then there's a meeting between the two counties and the fire district on June 1st. So we're hoping to get the negotiations moving forward. The Western Fire Protection District studies, which is all the other fire districts minus North Tahoe, Alpine, Truckee, et cetera. We are about 15% of that study. There has been some slowdown, I would say, or that we have a little bit of a hiccup. We have the Forest Hill Fire Protection District. I think they haven't submitted all of the information, so we're starting with South Placer, the most western Fire Protection District. We're starting with South Placer. I know that's 50% complete, as well as the, not just the MSR, but the master plan. And then we're moving up the hill. And then I wanted to report to you that I did receive a call from, or I'm sorry, an email from the Forest Hill Fire Protection District, because they recently had, I believe their fire chief resigned to move on to another fire agency, and so they convened a Blue Ribbon Committee, and they have a meeting on the 18th, and I will be presenting just some LAFCO information's options for them to take a look at, and obviously all of the options, whether it's consolidation, reorganization, or anything of that nature, contracts, those all require municipal service reviews and studies, which we already have in the works. So hopefully that will motivate them to complete the tables and we can get going. So while we're on that topic, because I just wanted to make sure that this was very clear to some of the interested members of the public and also our affected agencies. LAFCO has definitions under the government code that are very specific to, so I know a lot of people will say consolidation when that's not really what they meant. So a consolidation is two or more agencies, whether it's two cities in the same county or two districts, and combining to create a new district, right? So it's so that's the difference between a reorganization and a consolidation. Usually, like what we're doing with the North Tahoe Meeks Bay, is we're doing a reorganization. So it's an annexation of one district to an existing district, and so we're not creating a new agency. We're simply just transferring voter-approved assessments, voter-approved, et cetera, to the new area, like we do with a city annexation. So, and then a merger is when a district and a city consolidate. And then I just wanted to point out, so there are several actions that the commission can take. Each of these actions is one change of organization, so two or more is a reorganization. I want to point out one, which is where I put the little star. So a change of organization, a district who is no longer wanting to provide, say, one service. For example, we have one of our water districts provide both road maintenance improvements, et cetera, and then they also provide potable water services. So if they were to divest one of those powers, it's a change of organization that comes to LAFCO. Also, if we have another district that wants to take on new powers, they have to go through LAFCO. That's, that power resides with the LAFCO Commission. So I just wanted to point that out because there's several agencies who, may be making some changes. And then the other notable, or one other thing that I wanted to note is that an incorporation is a new city, not an annexation. An annexation is an existing city taking on new territory. I've been seeing this a lot, asking about incorporation, and as a LAFCO staff member, it's like, wait, what are you talking about? What? Right, because those are very different. It's not an incorporation. It's simply just an annexation. So if you have any questions, please let me know and on any of these items.
Mine was specific to the North Tahoe Meeks Bay. I know that I spoke to the chief a day or two ago, and with concerns with the timing and how long that is taking. And as I understand it, the two counties really have to come together and address the pension obligations of one of the districts, correct?
Yes, absolutely. There's some inequalities there between the two districts. The one district is financially healthier than the other, and so there are some negotiations that will have to take place. And really, it's really up to the two agencies, the two counties.
The two counties, and so I think that meeting's coming up. They had hoped to have it sooner. I know it takes a while to get everyone together who needs to be at a meeting to discuss that, so that's unfortunate, but they are anxious to get going, from my understanding.
Yes, and as I mentioned, we will receive the Goodwin study, I was told, before the end of the week. And then the meeting between the two counties and the district staff will be on June 1st.
All right.
So that concludes my presentation.
Any additional questions from the board?
Just one. Your distinction between consolidation and reorganization, does that have any impact on our pending reorganization plan for Newcastle and Placer Hills, or are we on the right side of the line you were drawing there?
No, that was submitted as a reorganization. It's an annexation with a dissolution of another district. The reason I had brought that up is because of the South Placer Fire Protection District. That was a consolidation, and so not all of the powers, right, the 201 rights, for example, were extended, and then you have the assessments were not extended, and so now there's two different rates, and so that's why it was on our, what not to do, because it really just creates, yes, they're one district, but it's almost like it's still two entities because you have separate budgets and separate rates, and it just causes a lot of extra work for staff, but also some animosity amongst the residents. Why am I paying, X? Why do I not get this service? And then my neighbor gets a different service, paying a different amount, but we're in the same district. And so I wanted to make sure that was very clear, that when you are consolidating, you're creating a new agency.
So far, you've done a wonderful job of leading me away from the path of South Placer, and I hope you'll keep on doing so. Thank you.
And like I said, we have their master plan coming and their study, and so hopefully we can provide options for your commission to review and maybe make some changes, and hopefully for the better.
Michelle, I have one more question, Chair. Would your presence at the meetings with the two counties and the two fire districts for North Tahoe and Meeks Bay make a difference because of your vast experience with looking at these? And the pitfalls of how to look at the unfunded liabilities and the other issues. I hate to have them go down a path and then you say, well, we learned from Southern California this is not the way to do it, or there's a better way to address it. I'm just wondering if you should maybe
I will make myself available. So at the last meeting, there was a prior meeting, and I just introduced the two agencies, and they, asked me to leave. It wasn't rude, but I will let them know, that I'm available. Like I said, it's really up to the two agencies, but I can certainly join if they want me to.
I've just always found that the more minds coming together to try to work out issues, we learn from each other, and you have a vast amount of experience with consolidations and mergers and annexations and incorporations. And I think that could be hugely valuable if, if we get to some sort of challenge. So
Hopefully the agencies can see that value.
yeah.
Okay. Yes.
I find your resource very helpful to all of us, so I just hope they will too.
I'll let them know. Thank you.
I will let them know too.
All right, do we have any public comments on the director's report? Come on up. I knew we weren't gonna have no public comment.
Oh, just a second. I'm sorry.
Hello, my name is Byron Chapman. I'm from Lincoln. And one of the items that was covered was the, Village 5 and Village 7. I realize that the city of Lincoln has, I haven't tracked the entire timeline. How long can the city actually continue to try to get you the documents that's needed for the commission to take a look at and go forward? And there's a primary reason there with the MSR and all that's going on with the annexation. Hopefully all of the commissioners know that there are a couple of families who've literally been in the proposed annexation area for 4 or 5 lifetimes. And unfortunately, when things get muddied up like that, legal issues have come into play to try to protect their rights. However that goes is up to the courts. But I'm more concerned about, I've been tracking how long it's taking for the city in order to provide the information that at several of the council meetings that I attend, they're constantly telling us that they have people working on it and it should be done and it should be in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the next council meeting. So I'm curious as to how long the city can actually continue to, and I don't want to say they're doing this purposely, but recently they have been put in a position, fortunately, where they are pretty much fully staffed now. In the past, I recognized the fact that, without question, they had way too few people in order to try many things done, particularly this. So I'm just trying to figure out how long can they continue to work on this until someone says, now we have a deadline. And I'm not familiar with that at all, and that's why I'm raising the question.
Michelle, do you mind speaking to that?
Sure. So we did issue an incomplete application letter to the city, and so as long as that incomplete application stands, they can continue to work on the application. So I believe I issued the letter back in October, and there is no deadline. They can pull the application, of course, but for now, it'll stay incomplete until they provide us the plan for providing services. And also, as I mentioned, we need to do a sphere update.
Right. And part of the concern about that, unfortunately, is we're getting, many of us who are concerned about this particular issue, many of us are getting information from the city that, we're moving forward on both of the villages, roughly the total package being a little over 4,400 acres. And so it's very difficult for a lot of us to try to keep track of what's going on and what needs to be done. In many cases, we're being told, within the next period of time, we're going to have this up and working. Whereas it seems as if, I just want to say from a standpoint of presenting it to the city and anyone there, we've been given the impression that there's absolutely nothing in the way. We're moving forward. There's not an issue here, when in fact there are issues. So I'm just trying to maybe nail down how long that can be prolonged, just from an interest of trying to figure out and understand how that works. So, thank you.
Right. So,
Thank you for the public comment. It definitely sounds like the short answer is indefinite, which obviously is not ideal. I know that's absolutely not the answer that you wanted to hear from us today. If I understand correctly, Michelle, that is the answer.
Right. So there are some LAFCOs, El Dorado, for example, our neighbor, they issue an incomplete letter, and if you don't have it complete within 6 months, they will, your application is terminated. And then you have to reapply. And we don't have that policy. It's not in state law. That would be something that you could consider in the future. But for now, they have time to complete the information. We are just required to let them know what they need to complete, which we've done. And then once they do complete that information, we issue a certificate or, complete the application. And we said, yes, it looks good, it's ready for the commission. We issue a certificate of filing, and then LAFCO staff has 90 days to bring it to your board for your consideration. So that's where there's a deadline. But for now, they can take as long as they need to submit a complete application.
So Michelle, maybe what we could do, since it sounds like there is sort of a public request at minimum for more transparency, at least from LAFCO, if we could take this back to our policy committee as one of our topics and see how we want to handle this going forward. Obviously, if we start imposing timelines like that, my expectation is that it would apply to future applications, not applications already in process. But that doesn't mean that we can't have a notification system for applications already in process. Every certain specific amount of time, we send a specific notice to the city that we've been waiting this long, so on and so forth. So at least there is the public record that's accessible that, folks can refer to if they're concerned.
Oh, sure.
And I was just saying about that again with our discussions on trying to do some sort of strategic planning and are there policies that other LAFCOs have that we should learn from to avoid this situation and set a time limit so that one way or another there's action for the applicants.
Right.
And there can be extenuating circumstances, I would assume, if you set a 6-month deadline, but they were obviously getting close, you could extend 30 days, but still an action by LAFCO to continue that for an extension versus indefinite. That's got to be very challenging.
Just for clarification, based on what you said initially about sending them a letter in October,
Yes.
it's been 6 months.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I sent it towards the end of October, and it asked for the tax sharing agreement, which they've complied with. It asked for a map and description, which they've complied. But it also talked about a plan for providing services, a current sphere of influence, and then the municipal service review, and the municipal service review is also complete. So they have most of the information, but again, it's those last two items.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well with that, if there's no additional public comment at this time, then we will go ahead and close the executive officer's report. I don't think we need to take a motion on that item. So we can move to commissioner comments. Does anybody have any comments or anything for the good of the order?
No, except to thank you very much.
I was exactly going to say we should
Done a
at least
very good
thank
job.
Trinity for, I think, leading us through this last transition, and it's been incredible. The energy you've brought and the dedication you've brought to chairing this board and keeping us on track and working with staff. I think we all agree.
Thank you.
And
I was going to joke because you mentioned earlier that the Meeks Bay project was taking a little longer than we wanted. I thought there was a little bit of humor in that because I was appointed as chair because we were going to focus on fire this year, but we haven't even touched it yet. So I guess it's moving to you now.
And thank you so much, and, sorry for all the late night texts and emails, and so I'm sure you'll be glad not to receive those from me anymore.
I hope I still get them.
You've done a great job, Trinity, really.
Thank you. All right, did anyone have any comments on anything else? All right, well, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, and we will see you June 14th.
Thank you.